Thank you for joining us today. My name is Rebecca, and I'm the Communications and Program Manager here for the Elections Group. For those of you who may be joining us for the first time, the Elections Group is an election administration consulting firm. We partner with state and local election officials to implement new programs or improve processes for voters and stakeholders alike. We provide guidance, resources, and direct management support for jurisdictions. Our team is made up of former election officials and election experts from across the United States, and we are pleased to have all of you with us today for the next highlight of resources for the election administration community. Just to note, this conversation today is being recorded. Each week, we will showcase resources from the Elections Group paired with resources from other organizations in the election space. Every 4 weeks, we focus on a different topic, and we'll take a deeper dive into the resources available for each week. This month, we're focused primarily on election workers and observers. This week, however, we are highlighting the Election Group's Developing Your Brand Identity guidance document and template, and CTCL's 4-course series on leading a successful poll worker program. To talk in depth about the resources, we have 2 guests here with us today. To speak about TAG's Developing Your Brand Identity, we have the creator, Drew Davies. Drew is the founder and creative director at Oxide Design. And here with us to share CTCL's training series, we have Taryn Dwyer, who is the instructional design manager at CTCL. We are so excited to have both of you here with us today. And we'll go ahead and get right into the resources. We'll go ahead and kick things over to you, Drew.
Thanks, Rebecca. Glad to be here today and to share this resource. I've been working along the way with the Elections Group on a variety of different resources related to my background and experience in elections design. I am Drew Davies. As Rebecca said, I'm the founder and creative director of Oxide, civic-minded brand and design consultancy. So I've been working for about 30 years in that space, and the last 15 or so been involved more specifically in ballot and election design space, working on nationwide elections design. I'm currently working with the EAC on the second edition of the Election Design Best Practices document that was originally released back in 2007. So I want to give you a little bit of foundation today to bring you up to speed with some of the things you might need to know about the actual resource that we have available on the TAG website. The resource is about brand identity guidelines, but to get us there, there's a couple of things I want you to know and a couple of steps that maybe you're going to take before you even use that resource once you get to that stage. Very quickly, some definitions. This is just so we're all on the same page before we get going. There's a lot of weird, blurry terminology that's thrown around in this space, and so I try to bring everybody kind of back to center before we go, but they're all on the screen. But just quickly, the idea of brand is a word that people use for lots of things. Technically speaking, the definition is that sum total of all the things that everyone feels about you, your organization, your elections office, so it's really a really broad idea that's outside of your control in many ways. But the tactical pieces then are how you help people get nudged in the right direction. So a lot of people use the word branding informally for the visual representation of that. Most specifically, then, that idea about logo, sometimes called brand identity, which is, all of you know, that symbol or stylized text that ends up signifying your overall brand in space. So quickly, I want to talk then about why build a brand identity at all in the first place, which leads to you needing to have a set of brand identity guidelines contained in the resource. The idea then is really that having consistent branding is important, relevant, and valuable. And the consistent part is what's really most important here. So I work with a lot of clients, and what I'll tell them actually is that a simple, straightforward logo used consistently is exponentially more valuable than the world's very best logo that's employed aimlessly, kind of thrown about, or only used in certain circumstances, right? So the idea here isn't that you need the greatest logo in the world. It's that you need a really, really consistent visual element that helps everyone identify that you are the source of this information. So it ensures that you're easily recognizable. People know exactly who they're hearing from right away. Helps all those voters know that this mailing or that website comes from the same place and it comes from you. And then it establishes you as professional and credible in that space. So we're building you up to be more trustworthy because people recognize that you are consistent and professional element. And so they know where all of the data that you're sharing is coming from. So then a couple of key elements on creating a logo or a visual identity if you don't already have one. It's a, as you can imagine, oftentimes lengthy and in-depth process, but the reality is you can do it yourself internally if you keep that idea about employ it consistently rather than worry about it being perfect. So if you're doing that yourself or even with a partner, a couple of quick considerations that people oftentimes don't think about before they go into the process of, oh, we need a logo. One is to really sit down and think about all the places where your logo or your name or some identifier of your office already exists, and really get a handle before you start on where all those places are, all the ways in which you'll need to put a new logo in place, because you want a new logo in every one of those instances if you can. Then it's usually a good idea to sit down and think about the budget of not just designing the logo, but what is it going to take to implement that logo pretty quickly and consistently across all those spaces. So that list allows you to go back through and identify, okay, we've got to switch out a logo on the website. That'll take this much work. We've got to switch it out on all of our mailers throughout the course of an election year. That'll take this. We've got to switch it out on a variety of signage and banners and pens and notepads and lapel pins and the like. So it's just a good idea to sit down and really work through the implementation costs about that, so you know what you're going into. And then I've seen this go awry a few times, so I always try and remind people this sense about getting buy-in. It's easy for one person to say, oh, I'm going to develop a new logo for our office and we'll just start using it. But without getting buy-in from appropriate decision makers at the start, oftentimes that can go off the rails, because if other people don't believe a new logo is needed, it becomes really hard to implement that consistently across space. Then recommendations when creating a logo. If you're going to do this in-house, like I said, you don't have to spend $1 million or even hire someone outside. You can develop your own logo following a few simple guidelines. Really, make it easy to reproduce. You probably know this already, but most of your materials get printed in black and white. Sometimes they get printed very inexpensively, so you want to be developing a logo that doesn't require fine detailed lines or needing a rainbow of colors to actually make it distinguishable. A really key element we call out is to make sure that you're building a logo that's really unique to you, kind of making sure that you're not accidentally developing a logo that looks dangerously similar to other people's logos. There's some both legal and ethical considerations in that space, but really you want the thing to identify you uniquely. So try and figure out what elements might do that and how to both conceptually and visually make a logo specifically your own. Again, build it planning ahead to apply it to every last piece that you do: banners, website, printed mailers, and the like. And then last but not least, bringing us around to the resource we're talking about today, I encourage people really strongly to build a simple set of guidelines that allow you to ensure the consistent implementation that we talked about being really valuable there, right? So the resource that's available on the elections group guidelines right now is this document that shows you what a basic set of rules around application of a logo and then colors and typefaces can be. So when we talk about an identity, this is extending beyond a logo, and we encourage people to say or determine a couple of one or two colors that are also the colors used to identify your office, and colors that you'll use consistently anytime you have an opportunity to use color. Same with a font or a typeface, right? We like to pick one, maybe two of those, and establish them as these are the fonts we use. If we have any choice at all, we put these in place. So we've got not just a consistent logo usage, but then consistent colors that follow that and consistent typefaces that follow that. So we're always building within the rules of that system. So Rebecca, I'll have you show them the next page with the actual resource on it. What we've got available on the Elections Group website is this Developing Your Brand Identity sample of usage guidelines. So you'll see it shown there and more clear on the website if you follow the QR code. But the idea is really just to make a very simple document that you can hand out to everyone in your office, every vendor that you work with, every printer you talk to, every banner shop, your web coders, if you've got them outside, and the like, that allows them to see the very basic rules of this logo. So you can explore it in more detail if you go to the website, but the basic areas are this idea about identifying it clearly, making sure you're putting a revision date at the top of it so people know they're dealing with the most recent version, and then showing as best you can all of the acceptable logo variations. Those happen in color and in black and white, oftentimes showing how your logo can be used in white on a black field. And what this does is it sets up basically a rule. If you don't have, if you can't use the logo in one of these ways, figure out a way to do it. So these are the only acceptable ways in which we use our logo, so that you don't have people wandering off in space making choices about, oh, I'll alter the logo this way, or maybe I'll change its colors or all whatnot. This allows us to establish this pattern. Here are the rules. This is how you use the logo. Likewise, below that, you'll see in this document, essentially what we establish is, here are our standard corporate colors, we'll call them, for the office. It's, in this case, theoretically, this blue, this gray, and then as secondary colors that we use infrequently is green and this orange. In most cases, if we can, we define those by their color breakdowns so that people doing print materials know how to replicate them accurately. People doing web stuff know how to replicate them accurately. And every vendor that's using this document keeps those colors consistent. And then again, same with typefaces as we go. So the next section down in the document shows, this is our corporate typeface, this is our secondary corporate typeface. Use these consistently wherever you can. And if possible, we even include links there then to allow people to download those fonts if they're free online resources. Again, all of those things used consistently build up that trustworthiness in the system. Last but not least, we usually like to include in these identity guidelines a little bit of information about what should or shouldn't be done with the logo. So oftentimes we'll define a clear area, which is just that indication of not shoving anything too close to your official logo, so it looks, we don't want it to look like it's had something glued onto the side of it. So we want to define a little bit of space around it that shouldn't have any other elements in it. And then in this case, just a quick bullet list of things you absolutely shouldn't do with the logo. You know, don't drop shadow it on stuff, don't skew it at an angle, et cetera, et cetera. And then as a quick note, tactically, we encourage you to put your office identification information and contact information at the bottom of any document like this, so that whoever's reading it, if they have any questions before they do anything foolish with your logo, they call you to make sure that it's okay. So this resource then exists as an example on the site, but the idea also is that you can either use it as a template to follow to build your own, or get some help from the comms resource desk at TAG to help you build out this resource if you don't have the staff on hand to do that.
Perfect. Thank you so much, Drew. I think one thing that I also want to add is some folks who are listening in today may have a logo or a seal that they have to use because of their jurisdiction or their office, and they may not think that they have a need or a use for a document like this. And I still want to point out that it's really important, even if you already have a logo or even if you already have a seal or something that you have to use, your jurisdiction may already have a document that's similar to this that you can use, or they may not, and you might just want to create one, especially when you're sending multiple files to the vendor and the printer and things like that. So just to keep in mind, this is useful whether or not you have a logo, or if you need to develop a logo, our team can help you with that too. So, but thank you so much. Taryn, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to you now to introduce yourself, your organization, and I will let you share your screen as well.
Yeah, thanks so much. Let me make sure I got my screen all set up. All right. Can you just confirm you can see that?
Looks good.
Okay, awesome. So thanks again to the elections group. Hi, everyone. My name is Taryn Dwyer. I'm from the Center for Tech and Civic Life. I'm really excited to be talking to you today about one of our generic nonpartisan resources, a course series on leading a successful poll worker program. Before I dive in, just want to give a quick intro to CTCL for those who might not be familiar with us. The Center for Tech and Civic Life is a national, nonpartisan civic tech nonprofit organization, and we harness the promise of technology to modernize the American voting experience. We do that by helping state and local election officials adopt the skills, tools, training, and standards to run excellent elections for their voters. In addition to CTCL, I want to quickly introduce the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence. The Alliance is a nonpartisan collaborative that brings together election officials to rally around a set of common values and standards, support each other, and keep their skills fresh. Election offices from around the country participate alongside designers, technologists, and other experts like our good friends here at the Elections Group. The course series that I'm sharing with you today was created by CTCL, aligned with the values and standards for election excellence developed by the Alliance. But more on that later. Let's talk poll workers. We know that poll workers play a crucial role in elections and are key members of your team. While serving in their roles, they perform critical job functions, act as representatives for your office, and impact how well elections are run and voters' experiences in those elections. Being thoughtful about recruiting, training, managing, and retaining poll workers can improve the administration of elections, preserve election security, and increase voter satisfaction and confidence. We know that leading a successful poll worker program involves handling many different moving parts. So last year, we developed this series. It's informed by researched and tested best practices. And the publicly available course series contains stories, case examples, and tips from experts and election officials from across the country. Every course also shares additional resources on each topic area to help you apply what you've learned. So these 4 courses for election officials address poll worker recruitment, training, management, and retention, with one 90-minute course per topic area. Each course is a deep dive into its respective topic and covers a balance of basics, which might be helpful for those who are new to working with poll workers, as well as some creative or advanced strategies and resources that might be new even for veteran election officials. The courses are asynchronous and self-paced, so you're welcome to take them at whatever time and speed works best for you. Every course can also be taken independently, so if you're really interested in refining or changing your poll worker training, feel free to take just that course whenever you need it. Even within a course, you'll find clear and modular lessons that you can jump to if you have a specific topic you want to focus on, or if you just don't have time for the whole 90-minute course right now. So, for example, if you feel like your poll worker training is really good, but you want to learn a little more about training your poll workers for emergencies or exceptional situations, you can easily skip straight to that section of the course. On the flip side, we also understand that all parts of your poll worker program have interconnections and dependencies. So the courses in this series build and refer back to each other in places where it makes sense. Like I mentioned, every course includes researched and tested best practices, presentations from experts, resources, tips, and stories to support you in improving your office's operations. We're especially proud to have worked with election officials from across the country who lent their expertise and experience to provide on-the-ground context to the ideas discussed, as well as explain the methods and tools that they have tested and used in their own work. Our guests include folks from local election offices in Arizona, California, Missouri, North Carolina, and Wisconsin, and come from jurisdictions with varied populations, election types, and poll worker needs. We're also excited to have a guest from the Brennan Center for Justice who weighed in on some general legal considerations for recruitment and training. Essentially, what we're hoping to offer with the series is an exploration of frameworks, strategies, generic resources, and case studies to understand the ins and outs of poll worker programs. Inspiring stories and ideas from local election officials from across the country as they share what works in their communities, and relevant poll worker practices to better serve voters in your area. With this varied group of experts and other case examples throughout the courses, we believe all kinds of offices will have something to connect to and learn. Like I mentioned in the intro, we built these courses to support the standards for election excellence developed by the U.S. Alliance for Election Excellence. The Alliance has brought together local election officials from across the country in jurisdictions large and small to help create standards for excellence in U.S. election administration. These nonpartisan standards aim to support local election officials, improve election operations, and build public trust. And each course of our series was designed to address one or more of the standards and help participants improve on those standards or simply up your game in that area. The relevant standards for this course series are poll worker recruitment, which is defined by your office recruiting enough workers with the necessary skills and competencies to conduct elections. Poll worker training, which looks like your office delivering comprehensive trainings to both understand and conduct their responsibilities, problem solve, and act with professionalism. Poll worker management, which involves your office efficiently and effectively maintaining information, communicating, and facilitating compensation for your poll workers. And finally, poll worker retention, which we've described as retaining poll workers by providing a positive experience, making workers feel appreciated, and incorporating their feedback from their experience. There are even more standards on the topics of communications and ballots and audits, with more standards on the way. You can visit electionexcellence.org to learn more about these and the other standards. All right, I hope that this has been a helpful preview of what our Leading a Successful Poll Worker program series can offer to you. Like I mentioned, all the courses are publicly available and can be accessed anytime at no cost. In them, you'll get recorded presentations from CTCL trainers like myself and my colleagues, experts like the folks I mentioned in the previous slides, and election officials, plus other written materials and links to additional resources. You can go to learning.techandciviclife.org to create a free account, which gives you access to the series and our whole library of other self-paced courses. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Taryn. That was great. We have a few more minutes left, so I'm going to reshare my screen, and we are going to talk about an example that we found in the wild. All right, so just to confirm, you guys can see the PowerPoint. Awesome. All right, so our in the wild example for this week is from Montgomery County, Pennsylvania. They have a robust election worker training program on their website. They also do in-person training sessions. Their online platform, however, allows election workers to learn and review what they've learned at their own pace. Manuals, training guides, videos, checklists, and more are housed in their training platform. So this is great, and it looks like all of their videos are publicly available as well if folks wanted to head over to their website for some inspiration. So kudos to Montgomery County, Pennsylvania, and keep up the great work. All right. Thank you again to everyone who's joining us today. And thank you so much to Drew and Taryn for a great discussion. All of the resources that were mentioned in today's discussion have been placed into the chat. We'd love to see if you've used any of the resources provided in our chat so far. If you've used or customized one of the resources, please let us know. Send us an email with a screenshot or a description. And as always, our inbox is open. If you have any additional questions, please give us an email at support@electionsgroup.com. Thanks so much, and we'll see you all next week.